But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne, and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know. I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
You are about to participate in the most ambitious culinary experiment ever imagined.
This competition is going to test everything.
Adapt quickly to anything. I mean anything. The wildest day of your life starts right now.
All new 24 and 24, Last Chef Standing. Sunday night at 8 on Food Network. Stream on Max.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper? A woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver. I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Three-star hotels.
All right, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. It's where I speak to bands about being bands. And on this episode, I speak with Nathan from Microwave. They're just about to release their new album, Let's Start Degeneracy. It's coming out next Friday, April 26th, on Pure Noise Records. It's the label that brought us albums from Knocked Loose, The Story So Far, State Champs, Bouncing Souls. They're putting out loads of great stuff, Pure Noise Records. And this new Microwave album is sounding pang. Haven't heard that word in a while. This new track, Hooperzine Dreams, super mellow, bored of being sad. It has this amazing chorus that goes kind of like minor, and it brings this kind of suede thing to it. I just thought that, but there's the album Let's Start Degeneracy is coming out next Friday, and I'm looking forward to it. They're on tour in the UK right now with the Dirty Nil. If you get a chance to see them, go do it. They're in Manchester tonight, Glasgow, Sheffield, Guildford, Bristol, Brighton and London. That's at the Scala on the 24th of April. What an excellent band. Microwave, coming up on the show, we got Nathan talking about his life in music, starting off being a Mormon, growing up as a Mormon and having a couple of intense years as a Mormon. That's coming up. I just want to shout out 2000 Trees, who are our awesome sponsors. They put on the best independent festival in the UK. If you're into this kinds of music, if you're into stuff like Microwave, this year the Gaslight Anthem, The Chat and Don Broco are all headlining. Manchester Orchestra, Bob Villan, Frank Turner, Kids in Glass Houses, Creeper, Hot Mulligan, Cleopatra. So many great bands. In fact, there's probably not one artist or band on this flyer that I wouldn't be happy seeing in an awesome green field in Cheltenham, just a few hours away from London on the train. If you want to head to Trees this year, you can get 50 quid off your weekend ticket as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to 2000trees.co.uk, and where it asks for a voucher code, it's a little bit small, it's on dice, but there is a bit where you put in a voucher code. Put in 101 pod and you'll get 50 quid off your weekend ticket. You can get that at 2000trees.co.uk and have the best weekend of your lives. All right, this is Nathan from Microwave coming up on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Cheers for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you subscribe for 2 episodes at least a week with awesome bands and artists. And if you've got 30 seconds to leave a kind review on Apple. Cheers. 101 Part-Time
I did an interview with someone locally in Atlanta recently who's like a personal friend who was working on a thing having to do with Mormons. I think like a film that included Mormon characters or whatever. So he asked me to tell like personal stories because he was trying to like kind of get some inspo for his thing. And it turned into like a 3-hour convo where I talked about a bunch of really specific experiences, and then he just ended up being like, we should just do this too. So I was just editing through it and then changing some names and stuff, you know, so that I don't put anyone on blast. And
So did you grow up as a Mormon?
I did, yeah.
So look, I don't know much about this. I don't know much about what it means to be a Mormon. How do you what would be like the first way you'd explain it?
So basically Joseph Smith in like 1820 to 1840 time range was a guy in upstate New York, and then he allegedly was visited by God and Jesus Christ and restored Christ's true church to the earth, and was told where golden plates were buried with it. It contained the record of the of people that lived in America at the time of Jesus Christ. And it was like Jesus essentially like came and visited America allegedly after he was resurrected and whatever, and told them how he died for their sins and stuff. So it's like, it's kind of like paraphrasing the New Testament, but there's like a whole nother book, like the Book of Mormon, that's like the record of the people in America at that time.
Right.
And there's like a church still on the earth, or there's on the earth. There's a church still that's still, you know, it's like 16 million people or something now, and it's they got the missionaries with the name tags that knock on your door and stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm. So were you doing that when you were growing up? Were you knocking on doors?
I did it when I was 19 to 21. Yeah, for 2 years. Yeah.
What was it like?
It was not fun.
Yeah, because I guess look, I think everyone's entitled to have their own beliefs. You know, don't want to fuck around and take the piss out of people or anything like that. But it's interesting. I guess like South Park and like the Book of Mormon, the theater show here in London, and there's probably one in New York, right? I mean, we kind of hear jokes about it more than anything.
Yeah. No, it's pretty easy to make jokes about, for sure. And I feel like the South Park episode that talks about the history of Mormonism is pretty spot on. In general, the whole vibe of it and everything is like they really embody the pure essence of how it is.
And were you like a punk rocker? Were you going to shows at the same time as being a Mormon? Were you kind of living?
Well, I wasn't allowed to go to shows while I was a Mormon missionary because they have like really strict rules. You're essentially like a monk, kind of like you have to wake up and go to bed at the same time and follow a schedule, and you only read and listen to and watch stuff that has like the church's logo stamped on it and stuff. It's like you're pretty heavily indoctrinated there.
Okay.
But when I was growing up, I was always into music. Yeah, like I was just ever for forever. Yeah.
So was it your choice to become a Mormon when you were 19?
Or, I mean, it wasn't really, no. I mean, I was a Mormon the whole time I was growing up, and my parents and my parents' parents and all the way back to Joseph Smith, they're always Mormon.
Okay. So what do your parents think about what you do? What about like playing music that doesn't have the Mormon stamp on?
I think they're proud of me now to some extent, but I know that it's for sure difficult for them, that they would prefer that I was Mormon.
Mm-hmm. So it's been like a challenge on both sides, I guess.
For sure, yeah. No, that was definitely a hurdle to overcome, especially like the first few years after leaving the church.
Yeah, and was that like a big leave for you? Was that quite a significant like period of time?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, the first few years especially was, I mean, you're just trying to like shed off the indoctrination of your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And then also dealing with like the ramifications or whatever, dealing with like the relationships with Mormons that I have and everything, and especially the family and everything was a interesting thing to navigate. Yeah.
And how would it work? So if your family and your friends and most people you know are Mormons and they're watching like exclusively Mormon material, would you like have to kind of hide away in your bedroom with an internet connection and sort of, you know, watch YouTube and find music without them knowing?
No, that was while I was a Mormon missionary, while I was doing the thing with the name tag and the knocking on doors. But when you're just in the church, you don't have they don't just watch stuff with the church's logo stamped on it.
Right.
So although they are very like conservative about the things that they watch and consume or whatever, like they for sure were against watching R-rated movies. And
yeah,
my parents, I definitely had to hide away in my room while listening to music with like screaming, or while listening to music with profanity and stuff, which was like, you know, the majority of the music that I listened to. So it was still that dynamic to some extent, but yeah.
And playing music, like going one step further and like, you know, not being a fan, but actually like getting out there and going on tour with your friends and not knowing where you're going to sleep or eat and stuff that, you know, that's a few roads away from being a Mormon.
I think for sure my family would prefer that I did something else, but they've made an effort to be, I mean, there's only they got to be supportive to some extent, because the only other alternative is not have a relationship at all.
I don't know, you know, this show is all about doing things that you don't want to do, you know, and like the bullshit sort of side hustles where you have to lie to your boss and do things that you hate. I mean, some people don't mind the side jobs. I personally always found it really hard to do a job. And by the way, I know the way, like how maybe like privileged this sounds, but I guess it's a blessing and a curse, is that ever since I was a kid, if I was working at the supermarket or doing whatever job that wasn't creating something, I felt like it was a waste of time.
Yeah.
Because I think from a young age, I was making stuff like building ramps or doing things with my friends and like building these experiences. And I knew straight away, I was like, oh, there's something special about this. Yeah. Any significant time I spent doing something that I didn't get something back from, And I think that's why I don't play video games, is that I don't personally get anything back from playing a video game. But if you make something and you're creative, you get something back from it.
Yeah. No, I also don't really play video games for that same reason. It never, yeah. No, I'm in the same, I feel the same way for sure. I would, yeah, no, I always felt like, and also with doing the jobs, like working at the grocery market and stuff, when you're doing those jobs so that you can continue to be an artist, it also feels like, man, I could put this time into something that was a different career outside of being an artist, and at least be building something that had a future. Like learning to code or something, like
Big time.
anything but working at the supermarket.
That's it. And if you're learning to code, and my girlfriend's just learning to code, and she's finding it difficult because it's quite like the start is a very like stodgy, like there's a lot of things to learn, a lot of like, and you're trying to cram it all in. I mean, for people who play in bands to code, that's a trick. That's got to be a trick.
Yeah, no, or a lot of those jobs are more like they have more of a workload where you have to be kind of full time with it too. Or if you wanted to find a part-time one, you'd have to kind of be established first to where someone would allow you to do that. Because a lot of it, even if you work from home, a lot of it, I know they want you to put in so many hours a week and stuff.
Yeah. And that work ethic, I've often found it funny. I mean, maybe it's like so obvious that people don't talk about it that much, but anyone who plays in a band that has played a show, let alone go on tour, like everyone has a pretty intense work ethic, because it's like, well, no one else is going to do it for you. You have to work all day, every day, get on your emails, go to practice, figure it out as you go along. I mean, people in bands, they're the best workers.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of work ethic with being a band, especially, yeah. I think that's honestly like almost more than having good songwriting or talent or whatever. That's like what makes people succeed. Yeah, or just because you got to spend the time. There's a lot of practicing involved. There's a lot of like developing a wide array of skills with like audio knowledge and different. Yeah, there just everything is a grind for sure. It like even if you love doing it, it's like there's always going to be things that are tedious and stuff.
When you think about like the sort of main like pivotal moments, like the memories where like you learned something, like you learned that, you have to have a harder work ethic, or maybe you learned that you already had like a great work ethic. What kind of memories do you think back of in Microwave's time?
In the time,
Was it like a tour that was like, okay, after that tour, you were like, okay, now we feel like a band that has cogs that are working and we're all working together?
I always, my parents, when I was growing up, I always had to have at least like half B's and half A's or whatever. Like I was used to, I was always pushed to, apply myself or whatever. And then I went to college when I came back from being a Mormon missionary for like 2 semesters, and I was gonna have to like get some loans to keep going. So between that and between the fact that I knew I wanted to pursue music, I think that was really that was right around late 2013 or early 2014 or something. But it was around the time that I was working on the songs for Stovall. And that was I feel like there's a big jump between our first EP and then Stovall in like the quality of production and songwriting and everything, and the amount of effort and whatnot that we put into it. All of the albums we've done have always been like an incredible amount of effort. We always go down so many little rabbit holes, and we always do every step like 3 times, and we have the underlying anxiety of like, oh, could it be better? And then we like do something to just try to like push it to be a little bit better, because it's kind of like, this is the thing that's going to exist in the world for forever. But I think that like around the time that I left college, I was like, I better not, if I'm leaving college and just doing something that's a waste of time, then like we were saying before, that I'm not using that time to like develop something that's gonna have been worthwhile in the future in like 10 years or whatever. So it's like I really threw in my I was like I'm gonna put my whole energy into this, a lot of time and stuff into it.
Yeah.
And then dived into trying to develop songwriting and everything skills or whatnot, just spending a lot of time with it. Yeah.
And like that's like at that age, like early 20s, that's like it feels like a pretty vital time, because it's like, okay, whatever I do now, like I'm either going to be wasting my time or like doing something really important. I don't know, maybe that's not right for everyone, but you know that you do feel like, okay, whatever I'm doing now, I better put stuff into it, because this is going to matter in the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, a lot of people ended up going to college and then getting a degree that they don't use.
That's it.
So it's played out. It always plays out kind of interesting. Or a lot of people will, or at least they'll get a degree that they didn't really need to do whatever they end up doing and stuff like that. But so I feel like a lot of people have that experience of even if their intention is to be effective and productive with their decisions in the early 20s, it ends up not playing out that way.
Yeah. And I mean, do you have like jobs in the band? Like, you know, I think about MC5 and Wayne Kramer, RIP, would often say that like everyone in MC5 had their own job to do.
Like for the band?
Yeah, in the band.
Yeah.
Is that something that three of you kind of like fell into place, and like those kinds of you took those jobs for yourself, whether it's like, I don't know, driving, tour booking, tour managing, advancing the shows?
Yeah, there's for sure. I've always been like the main like songwriter person or whatever. So I've always written all the lyrics and everything, and then especially lately, it's kind of become more that way as the band's become more of like a serious career thing. Like the larger you scale up as a band, the more you find you need like 3 different insurance policies and all this crazy stuff.
Right.
And and Tyler, who plays bass, will handle a lot of sort of like managerial type things. Like he always helps prepare the taxes and
sexy stuff.
Yeah, you usually replying to emails for things related to merch and finances and stuff. And at this point, I've been sort of like the audio guy too. Like I bought all this stuff and set up our monitor, like an in-ear system, and worked through. We're like buying a console and stage box now and that kind of stuff. And
what's that? What's the stage box?
It's just like part of the console that's on stage, where you plug the IO into like the input that goes to the console at front of house or whatever.
Okay.
So that
So you've learned a lot of audio engineering stuff.
Yeah, to order it. Yeah, no, over the last few years. I also started recording. I mean, I've been recording kind of half-assedly for a long time, but in 2019 or so, I really dived into it harder. 2018-ish, I don't know. And especially the last few years, I recorded everything for our new record besides the drums for the most part, and a handful of other layers and stuff. But I had this room all built out. I got a bunch of microphones. Got a little like voice box booth and everything. But I spent a bunch of time learning how to do all of that too, learning how to record and whatnot.
Yeah. So you engineered it yourself. Did you have like an extra producer that was on hand, or anyone else outside the band?
I mean, we recorded drums and a handful of other layers with Jeremy Ferguson in Nashville, and with Travis Hill, who was playing in the band for a while. He recorded Stovall and Much Love. So they also helped with various things. Yeah.
So you've been pretty self-sufficient with it all over the years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we do a lot ourselves, I think, even as opposed to a lot of artists.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're like kind of in-house with recording, and we don't have like a business manager and stuff. So Ty is kind of like wears that hat to some extent.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
And much love. That just got reissued with that new cover. I read how you like, that cover's really cool and it's like a fun feeling, but it wasn't exactly the kind of vibe or the sonic kind of didn't relate to the sonic, the sound of it.
I feel like it was kind of intended to be like ironic or whatnot at the beginning, tongue in cheek or whatever.
Yeah. It's a good font. That I like that font.
Yeah.
But the new artwork's cool, isn't it? I mean, it's more like spooky.
Yeah, that guy's from Wales, I think.
Right.
God's Teeth illustration.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of his art for a long time, so that was a big motivation. I was like that was kind of the vibe that it would be an interesting stark contrast to the original vibe of it or whatever.
And was that between the albums, cause this new record, Let's Start Degeneracy, it's been like a few years. Well, it would have been a few years, 2019 since the last record, the last full length came out. I mean, that must feel, I guess, you're touring and you're...
Yeah, I mean, there was the pandemic was the big chunk of it and stuff. And then during the pandemic also, it was like we needed to pursue alternate part-time jobs, if you will,
Yeah, this is the place
or
for it.
Maybe full-time jobs, because I think we're the furthest thing away from a essential business. When they're shutting stuff down for the pandemic, we get people together in a space for a living or whatnot, so that they can spread COVID to each other or whatever.
Yeah.
But so that was I during that time I also kind of pursued. I've been working as like a stagehand also since like 2014, 15, unloading trucks for like shows at the arena and like the Lakewood Amphitheater in Atlanta and stuff. And I started to rig where you are up in the rafters and hang motors and everything. But
wow.
It was kind of microwave was a little bit on the back burner for a little bit because it wasn't really opened up to touring yet per se until like late 2021. So for like 2 of those years, pretty much there wasn't a lot that we did, and a lot of people were like working on music in that time frame and stuff. But I don't know, just like the dynamic of we put out the record in 2019, and then like 4 months later we were on a headline tour and it got cut halfway, got cut in the middle of it, and which was a little disheartening, and we didn't really get to push that record. So it kind of felt like when we first came back that we could just push the record that we hadn't really toured on yet and stuff. And and then it just took a while to finish a new record because you were like, throwing shit at the wall or just kind of reaching through the abyss to figure out what we were trying to go in.
Reaching through the abyss, it sounds like, I mean, every time, I think bands must feel like that because there's no like real structure, aside from the touring schedule, that kind of emotional state that kind of goes up and down. I don't know, what do you hold on to when you're feeling a little bit like flapping in the wind, when you're feeling a little bit lost? How do you come back from that personally?
I think that's always like an ongoing, that's probably the hardest thing, like just in general, regardless of your life pursuits. I feel like that's always the trying to continue to find inspirations and reasons to keep going or whatever. I think for sure it's like you were saying before, it's always sort of tied back foundationally into just being a fan of music and listening to music. And when you really love music, you continue to find new artists and new albums that come out and stuff that inspire you. And then I don't know where the ideas for like new song melodies and concepts come from, but sometimes the wheels just get turning and things pop back into your head and stuff. But
that's cool.
Or a lot of time, I'll have a lot of ideas that are sort of like vague or whatever, or they're just like not developed, and I've got a bunch of like song concepts sitting around and whatnot, but when you to bring something from like the conceptual phase to like a complete thing with like a somewhat of like a theme or narrative element, or with like the lyrics and that fits into the music and everything. It really takes a lot of dopamine, a lot of like yeah, focus, concentration, or like yeah, it's just really is just like work. I think yeah, it's like problem solving work. I've heard I just saw an interview recently with Philip Seymour Hoffman where he was talking about the same thing being true of acting. He's like, it's really just problem solving. Like I think about the character and who I am and how I'm similar to the character and how I'm different, and then you like we go through a really like methodical process or whatever. But I think it's like the same. I got, I'm always writing down uh out of context lines and phrases and stuff that just pop into my head that I feel like have like a, you know, musical vibe or thematic element that is something that I connect with and stuff. But at some point when I'm working on a song, I just sift through this 150-page Word document and I'm looking at all these phrases, and that process, honestly, I don't know if I'd call it like fun. It can be rewarding. It's rewarding once you find things that like originally weren't from the same context, but then they fit together in this strange way where it's like the parts become larger, or the sum of the parts becomes, or whatever the expression is.
Yeah. That like microwave sounds like that. Microwave is like, there's so much going on here, and ultimately like music's something that like we receive as like an emotion. You don't make sense of it when you're listening to music most of the time, and like that's what I get from microwave is it's like elevating of all those parts that go into it, which are all they're all very disparate, they're all separate ideas. There's a lot going in there, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I've even like thematically, I feel like there's always been hopping back and forth between writing really like hopeless stuff and then writing like hopeful stuff.
How do you know when you're onto something good? Like, what are the telling signs?
I think it just when you know type vibes. A lot of times I don't even really put in the big chunk of effort to develop a song until there's like 6 or so lines that just feel like they fit magically in there, like it was meant to be. Like you're like uncovering a fossil or something. Like it's something that already existed and you've like tapped into it or whatever. Like you
like Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, a bit like Indiana Jones, yeah. But but I feel like every element of the songs will be that way. Like there'll just be different things where it's like, well, even if the rest of the song is trash, it's a sick guitar solo, or like I really like this line or that line or this verse, or whatever it may be or whatever. And I think that those are the things that or honestly with the lyrics too, I keep like rewriting the lyrics until there's no lines that weren't intentional, because that's another thing that bugs me, is that I feel like that's when I know it's done also, is when there's not. I hate just knowing that like, oh, that was a filler line, or I've heard other artists say this about why they aren't a fan of having to rhyme and stuff, is because you end up saying things that there's this underlying sort of feeling that people can pick up on, like, oh, you just said it like that because it rhymes.
Yeah.
So I try to find the things where it doesn't just rhyme, it feels like it would have been said that way in like a conversational way and stuff too. And I feel like once it fits like that, it kind of clicks, and it's like, well, that's what it is for sure, because it just puts a smile on your face or whatever. You're like, aha, the light bulb or whatever, where it's and you still and you still have to like remember those moments when you felt that way too, for sure, because you forget once you've listened to the song another like 100 times. You're like, but by the time we turn in a record, I always have to be like, at one point you really liked that. Remember that. Because you'll want to, like, some things also like lose their charm on like the 100th listen or whatever, where you're like, was that good, or is that kind of cringe or something, or is that too on the nose or whatever? Yeah.
I often think that, like, we live in, if you said something now to a close friend, maybe in like a few years time, you'd be like, oh, I wish I hadn't have said that. Or I don't feel about that way now. But of course, like, on records, that will always be there. But you don't want that to scare you out of saying how you feel now, even though you know you might not feel about it the same way. Because if you say it now, you've got to be like honest to yourself.
Right. And you can always change your mind about things. You can always say something and then like completely contradict yourself 5 seconds later when you have a new thought. I feel like that's another thing that people forget with a lot of the conversations that go on in the world today.
This new record, how stoked are you on it? How stoked are you on the lyrics, like we're talking about now?
I'm very stoked. Yeah. No, we wouldn't have put out a record if we weren't stoked on it, for sure. That's why it took so long.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
It's just, and it's always been that way too. It's always like we always put a lot of time and effort into the records, and we wouldn't put out that, like, we're not a band that writes like a bunch of songs and then picks 10 or whatever to put on the record. If a song gets finished, then it's going to be on the record. And honestly, if a song gets finished, it's like it's, at one point we were like, oh, maybe this is a single type vibes or whatever. Like I can't work up the motivation to like develop the song and do that process with all the lyrics and everything if there's not like a underlying sentiment that the individual song is like a special one or whatever. So it definitely feels special to us. It's probably, I think as the microwave's gone on, particularly with the lyrics, I've felt better and better about them developing.
Awesome.
I think they might be a little preachy on this one, but that's my only because there's a lot of like really direct thematic statements as opposed to like vague narrative elements like in past stuff. So I wonder sometimes if it'll be like a little like a sermon or something. But
what kind of themes are we talking?
Well, just thinking through a lot of the songs just have like direct statements of ideology, I guess. Sort of like, I'm thinking like Straw Hat, for example, is like has the no one's responsible for anyone's feeling, like I love you because of the things you do for me. This is a meritocracy. No one is responsible for anyone's feelings. Then you got like if you romanticize misery, brother, you're gonna be miserable. There's like really direct statements I feel like in that realm. And then also, or like Hooperzine has the what if we dropped the catastrophic fatalist philosophies, looked at what's around us as lucid as our dreams. There's like just like they're just kind of like statements of ideology that are more direct than we've had in the past. But I do think that they are ideological statements that I identify with. So
you got to believe in yourself. You got to back yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool that like we're talking about this, that you know what I mean, that like you're able to put so much of your life into it. I think that's such a cool idea. I feel inspired by that. I think that's the cool thing about what all of this stuff that you're doing is that when you create, other people feel allowed that they can create as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think seeing other artists create is for sure the main inspiration for creating. When you hear a record that really just blows you away and you're like, damn, they put words and sounds to that thing that I was thinking that I didn't previously have the vocabulary for. And then it's like, well, now I have this whole new vocabulary to work with based on these new great music that's come out. And that's always I think that's the main thing that keeps keeps me going.
Hell yeah. Hey, can I ask for one last question, one last kind of like story reach back in your memory is what's like one big fuck up that you've made at work? What's a good like work gaff?
Oh man, I'm trying to think of like I've obviously done like a lot of them, but I think one of my biggest mistakes is oh wait, I shouldn't say that in a public way.
Good idea.
But I dislocated my shoulder a handful of times now, and it's always been while doing things that were unwise, like trying to do something too fast or hitting my guitar on stage after my shoulder just dislocated previously, just like in the moment impulsive things. Done a lot of impulsive, yeah.
You're an impulsive guy.
I mean, not.
You can be.
Definitely can be. I don't know if I'm more impulsive than the next guy per se, but I can be. Those are always the hard things. Also, is the where it happens and you're immediately like the implications. I can't use my arm for 2 months now or whatever, and things like that.
Spirit of rock and roll.
Yeah. But I had a lot of part-time jobs though too in this time frame. Washed a lot of dishes, worked in a lot of kitchens, worked for random people on Craigslist.
Oh yeah, tell us about a Craigslist story. Like, what's the most memorable Craigslist job?
I helped this guy help this guy build like a bridge for a park in Southeast Atlanta one time, and he also managed. He bought a bunch of these houses in this neighborhood, Thomasville Heights in Southeast Atlanta, where the houses are literally like $18,000, and he would like rent the houses out to people and then waive their first month rent if they bought a shotgun, because it was like a really high violent crime area.
Whoa.
So that was he was an interesting guy to work for. He like he was like from here, but like spoke Spanish fluently because he had worked in a hospital in Mexico in some random place and stuff for a chunk of his life and everything. He was a real he was like a kind of like pseudo conservative-ish, like a weird blend of political ideology too. It was like yeah, but and
you were building a bridge for him. How'd you build a bridge? Not like a car bridge that you could drive over.
No, it was like it was a walking bridge, yeah.
Like over a lake kind of thing.
It was over like a stream, so that like a walking trail could, like the old one had broken or whatever. But I delivered food on a moped for a Vietnamese restaurant in the downtown Atlanta for 2 years. That was a fun one. That was probably my favorite part-time job.
Because you got to zip around and like spend time alone, basically.
It was probably the highest hourly rate I've ever made in my life too. But
was that tips or the rate?
It was tips, and I did catering and stuff. But I worked from 11 to 3 Monday through Friday, so I didn't have to wake up early. I was off at 3 p.m. Worked 20 hours a week, and I was like comfortably supporting myself because of how well it paid.
Awesome.
That was like the first I quit that job
Dream.
In 2015 when we started touring more, because they wouldn't let me tour as much as we were doing or whatever. That was that was a really hard decision in time for me too. And then
once you find a job where you don't have to work that hard but you get paid okay, those jobs exist but they're rare.
Yeah. And then you sacrifice it to go sleep on couches for another 3 years or whatever. I spent a lot of time sleeping on couches too. Between the time that Microwave's been an active band, probably, or especially from like 2014 to 2018-ish, probably like 2.5, 3 years of time I didn't have a home. because I was
good going.
I was having to send it, like you were saying before. I was thinking that when you were first starting this, I was like, oh yeah, I know all about being poor to try to pursue music. That's been we didn't make any money really, honestly, until like 2022-ish. Like it was not anything to like contribute significantly to paying expenses.
And what was that thing? What changed in 2022?
I don't know. I think there was like a culmination of when things came out of COVID, the touring industry and supporting artists was like a prevalent thing. A lot of bands really gained steam, like I was saying before, like Mom Jeans and Hot Mulligan, that were bands that we'd been equated with or toured with in the past and stuff. And then we did the tour with The Story So Far in early 2022 with Story So Far, Joyce Manor and Mom Jeans. And we had put out our first single in conjunction with that tour, Circling the Drain, like the first single from this record.
Yeah. That's mad. I didn't, I know this track but I didn't realize it came out like 2 years before this record.
That one is a full 2 years before the record, but SZA did it too. I think it's cool.
Fuck yeah. I guess that's it now. That's what you'd like. Singles have their own lifetime and then they're part of a bigger project. I guess that's part of the way that music's released now.
It's for sure one way to do it. I don't know if that we've for sure gotten a lot of heat. We for sure had people talking trash about it on the forums and the internet or whatever about doing that. But I mean, we're at least hopefully there's no skips, that's the I don't like there's enough mediocre music in the world already that unless it's something that I personally connect with really strongly and that the band personally connects with really strongly or whatever, it's like, what's the point of just putting something for sure quality over quantity at this point. We got, like however many billion people on earth,
So there was Nathan from Microwave here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this, Apple or Spotify or whatever. And if you feel really kind, you can leave a review on Apple. You can leave a few words about the show. That stuff helps me massively. We've just become a small team of people. So having listeners, having guests every week, it's awesome. It feels like we're starting our own community. So cheers for being here. If you play in bands or you're an artist and you want to put out your own music, you can do so using DistroKid. And if you head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod, you can get 30%. That's 30% off your first year of making your own money from playing music and releasing it from Apple, on Spotify and YouTube and all the rest of it. TikTok. Upload your own music. Be effectively your own record label, the dream, and put your own records out into the world and earn all your own royalties. So if you're in a band or you're an artist or you know someone, you got a cousin, you got an aunt, you got a work colleague who plays music, they play in a band, they want to put out their own music and they're not sure how, tell them. You can head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod and get 30% off their first year making all their own royalties.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.